We're just going to get started here in a minute or so. If you are practicing along with me, then make sure that you have something to practice on. So yoga mat or just a cushy spot. We're going to be doing most of our poses on the floor this morning. Make sure you have some pillows handy. The more variety of pillows, the better. So I have some big fluffy couch pillows, but you could grab bed pillows, and also maybe grab a blanket or two, something that you can roll or fold up. Preferably something that's not too fluffy. So if you have some of that stuff, go ahead and grab it. Also, if you can grab a belt or strap. So I've got one that's pretty long. This is a yoga strap. Doesn't matter as long as it's not too stretchy. So I'll give you guys a couple minutes to grab that stuff. I'm going to grab some water and then we'll get started. Still waiting. Oh, I heard it. Okay, so we're ready to get started. Let's come down to the mat, please, and get yourself comfy. So, to begin, just make sure that you are as comfortable as possible on your yoga mat. So you could be lying on your back, lying on your belly or your side. Don't mind the background noise. The wifey's just getting some coffee. So get as comfortable as you can. I'm going to start sitting up, but if you would rather lie down, that's perfect. We're going to be in this starting position for about 5 minutes or so. So get yourself as comfortable as you can be for about 5 minutes, and then we'll begin. Settle into that comfortable shape or pose that you've chosen for yourself. Close your eyes or soften your gaze and turn your attention to your breath. And so here in the beginning, don't worry about how you're breathing. Just begin to notice the pace of your breath. Notice the depth of your breath. And maybe even the texture of your breath. Notice without judging any unevenness or stickiness in your breath. And try not to give in to the urge to fix anything, but rather just allow your breath to, on its own, just start to smooth and even out. Nothing needs to be forced. During the process of the breath sort of settling in and smoothing out, you might have a yawn come up. You might need to take a couple deeper breaths just to settle. Let it all unfold. And so as you allow the breath to settle in, bring your attention now to your body and allow your body to settle in. And so we sort of consciously allow the places we hold our tension in the body to relax. So for a lot of us, that's going to be in the neck and the shoulder area. For some of us, that tension is going to sit and linger in the hips. For some of us, in the jaw or the forehead. For some of us, it's in all of those places and other places as well. So this is your opportunity to tune in and pay attention to your body and notice the places where you might be experiencing that tension. Start to invite everything to soften and to relax. Throughout the practice today, we're going to be focusing on allowing an experience to unfold. Our poses are going to be held in a yin fashion, so we're going to be doing long holds, but no muscular effort for this practice. And we want to feel intensity in stretches, but we don't want to be active in those stretches. So here in the beginning, we're going to set an intention just to be really gentle with ourselves. And set an intention to allow each pose to be unique to you. This practice, as with all the yoga practices, we want to have unique individual shapes. That means we'll all do the poses just a little bit differently. So we're going to commit to experimenting and finding our own shapes and just enjoying this practice as it moves forward. So we'll take a couple deep breaths together, really just setting this intention. And then whether you're lying down or sitting up, just sort of flutter your eyes open and we'll all meet back in this space. So let's just work out any stiffness. So whether you're lying down or you're sitting up, just do a little bit of gentle stretching just to get out of any stiffness that's settled in from that beginning of our practice. Sometimes it feels nice, whether you're lying down or sitting up, to take your arms up and do a little stretch. No rules here, just stretch and move a little bit. We're all going to come down to our backs for this next part of our practice. So you'll want to have some goodies nearby just to see what you're going to need for support. I'm going to grab one of these couch pillows and just kind of have it within reach. I don't want it to block me for the view, but I don't know how to sit over there. This first pose is called Banana Asana. So I'm going to stand up and show you the shape we're going to be taking on the mat, but it is going to be a position you take lying on your back. So I'm not sure of the angle. I want to show you what it's going to look like. So what we're going to be doing when we're lying on our back is taking a shape that's sort of like a banana shape, right? So I'm going to demo this lying down and show you how you can use props to support it. And once we get started, we'll hold it for about 3 minutes. So to take this shape at first, what you want to do is lie on your back, bend your knees, place your feet flat, tuck your tailbone under a little bit just to lengthen the low back. Then extend your legs. Make sure my water's not going to get kicked over. If it's comfortable for your shoulders, you can take your arms overhead, but keep the elbows loose. Make sure you've got lots of space along the top of your shoulders. And then just sort of pick up your heels and walk them over to the right side. And as you do that, also just sort of scoot your shoulder blades over to the right side so you create a crescent shape. Then let your feet relax. So from this place, we're going to settle into breath and into stillness. Now, if you're feeling a lot of pull on your left leg, sort of pulling out, you can grab a pillow and just sort of shove it next to where that leg is to give it something to rest against. Like so. So now I've got a little extra support and I can really settle in. Perfect. I'm going to set our timer for the pose, and we're going to hang out here for 3 minutes. Have the back of your head stay in connection with the floor. Have your elbows connecting to the floor and the backs of your shoulders. The backs of both hips connected to the floor. If you find yourself twisting, then pull out of the pose a little bit so that the whole back body stays connected with the floor. And start to settle into a deep, full breath. And notice where you feel this pose the most. Some of us will feel it more in the outer left hip. Some of us will feel it down along the left side of the left leg. Some of us will feel it mostly in the shoulder. But notice where you're feeling it. And then breathe into what you're feeling. And so as a reminder in this practice, we want to be as passive as possible. So we're letting go of all muscular effort. We're getting as heavy as we can be. And we're settling into stillness. Notice that if the arms are overhead, but you start to feel any numbness or tingling in the fingertips, that's normal. Sometimes what happens is that we get a little bit of blood cut off in the shoulders. But if that's happening, we want to move away from that because we want lots of good blood flow throughout this practice. So if you're feeling that numbness or tingling, bring your arms a little wider or a little lower for the rest of the pose. Now, if as you're holding this, you want to feel it a little bit more, maybe the sensation has lessened, then you could walk your heels a little deeper into the pose, or take your shoulders a little further over, and then settle back into passivity and softness. And stay with your deep breath, and stay with your present awareness of your experience. And so very slowly, as you feel ready, start to make your way out of this pose. Bring your shoulders back a little bit to the left, and then very slowly take your legs a little bit to the left. When you come out of the shape, it's important to stretch and move a little bit. So move any props out of the way, any blankets or pillows, and then take any kind of movement that feels good. I like to bring one knee and then the other in towards my body and give them a big hug. Sometimes you might want to take them wide and do the same thing, or grab the feet. If you happen to be super flexible in this spot, you could do that. You could also just plant the feet on the mat and just windshield wiper the knees slowly from side to side. So whatever you think would feel good. If you feel like you want to sit up for a second, that's totally fine. Take a couple moments just to sort of unwind from that previous shape so that we can get ready to do the other side in a second. So second side, I'm going to have to scooch a little bit over because I've got a couch here. Second side, I already knew that I liked having the pillow on the outside of the leg, so I'm going to have that handy and just bring it in a bit. I know you can't see my feet. It's okay. So I'm going to first take my legs to the left and just make sure that that pillow is going to brace my legs a little bit. And then I'm going to take my shoulder blades to the left. And so we're stretching sort of this whole right side of the body. So settle in again on this side. I'll set our timer. So remember, our arms are relaxed, loose. Yeah, heavy into the floor. And let's begin to settle into this banana asana shape on the second side. Remember to stay heavy through the back of the right hip, back of the right shoulder. And if in your body having the arms overhead is really distracting because it keeps making the fingers go tingly, then you can do this pose with the arms down low, just focusing on scooching the shoulders over. Some people like to place one hand on belly. Or again, you can come back to arms overhead. Remember our intention from the beginning of the practice and choose a shape that most supports you today. We're looking for some sensation in the right side of the body. Come back to your deep, full breath. So in a yin style practice, as we hold the poses for time, as we hold them, several things often bubble up for us. So one of those things is that we might notice the pose gets a little easier, or we feel the sensation a little less. And part of this particular practice is to sort of play with sensation and see if you can follow that edge a little bit. Never pain, so we want to stay away from anything that's sharp or stabbing or burning or electrical or tingly or numb. But if you're feeling a good stretch and it starts to be a little quieter and a little quieter, then throughout the time we're holding the pose, you may want to just scooch just a little bit deeper into it. Take the legs over a little more and just sort of follow that edge. Now you might also notice that the opposite happens and you start to feel the pose too much. It gets a little noisier as you hold. And if you find that, then just notice that intensity increasing. Take a big breath. And if you choose to come out of it a little bit, do that in a conscious and mindful way so you're not being hasty, choosing too quickly. Again, notice sensation in the right side of the body. And stay aware and mindful. Full deep breaths. And when you're ready, we're going to slowly come out of the pose. Take your time. So maybe move one leg, scooch your prop away, and then the other leg. Oof. Move shoulders back. And as soon as you're out of the pose, moving slow, so it's really easy to rush here, take your time and move into whatever stretch or rest feels good. So I like to bring the knees in. For some people, this is not comfortable. If this isn't comfortable, don't do it. If you like to rock on the back with the knees in, do that. But if you don't, it's totally fine just to plant your feet. Roll the knees from side to side. So whatever you like or feels good for you. Could be sitting up, could be being still. It's all allowed. If you want to take your arms overhead for a nice big stretch, do that. Take a moment just to settle. And then we're going to move into our next shape. Now our next one is a bit of a hip opener. Now if you're right side dominant, a lot of times you'll find, so if you're right-handed, a lot of times you'll find that the right side is a little bit tighter than the left side. So I like to, in my yin yoga practice, I like to work on my tighter side first. If you know that your left side is tighter, if you have that awareness of your body, then feel free to start on the left side when I'm cueing the right. It won't hurt anything, and you'll just switch sides when you're ready. So for the right side hip opener, this one is a reclined version of a pose called swan. So we want to take the right ankle over the left knee and then let the knee hang. Now this is the starting sort of idea. Now your body may be a little different. You might be really tight and this might be too much. So first, to make it a little gentler, scoot your foot forward. I'm going to shove that pillow out of the way. So to make it more gentler, first step, my pants want to go completely crazy, is to scooch that left foot forward to find something a little bit gentler. But if your body is really tight, that even still might be too intense. So maybe your left leg is long, and maybe your ankle is just over your other ankle, right? And you get a little bit of hip. And if hanging the leg like this off of the ankle, or hanging the leg off of the knee is too intense, or you feel like your leg is going to fall off, like it keeps sliding, then you can take a pillow or something and just scooch it under your outer right hip, whether the leg is here or here. Here's my girl dog. That adds a little bit of support. So you can choose to add that support here. If the pillow's too fluffy, you can also take your folded blanket for a bit of firmer support and just sort of roll it under that hip, just like that. So find your version of this shape, and we're going to start our time and then settle in. Now, if you want more intensity, so we've talked about what to do if you want less. If you want more, you can actually elevate your bottom foot onto a blanket or a couple of pillows so you have a little bit more height, and you'll get more intensely into this shape. So choose your version. Roll the backs of the shoulders into the mat a little bit and let your arms just sit away from your body a little bit. And let's settle into breath. Now, as you're settling into this pose, if you feel any tension or pull at the sides of the knee joint, then just flex your top foot. So bring the heel away, pull the toes back just a little bit, and that will stabilize the knee. If you're feeling no tug at the sides of the knee, you're probably fine just to let the top foot stay relaxed. And let's settle again into our deep, full breath. Notice where you're holding tension. So in my body, I unconsciously grip in my shoulders or my hips. So if you find yourself doing that, you may have to actually check in and notice. See what happens if you let go. So I was gripping my shoulders, and when I let go, I feel them get heavier into the floor. A lot of times I'm gripping in my hips or my butt. So if you're finding that, try to let go. Hang out in gravity. Slow, deep, even breathing. Remember to move away from pain and discomfort, but lean into intensity as long as you feel safe. Let yourself be curious about the sensations in your body. As long as they're not pain, it's fine to notice them, pay attention to them, hang out in them. Notice the breath, and notice if you're holding the breath. And so to come out of this pose, we're going to be really mindful. If the leg is long, that's fine, just leave it long. If the leg is bent, slowly scooch your foot forward off of whatever prop it's on so that the knee is a little lower to the ground, and very slowly unwind that top leg and stretch a bit. So whatever feels good for stretching, you can hug knees in. Again, I come back to windshield wipers with the legs a lot. So whatever you like, just stretch it out. Maybe hang out for a couple breaths, and we're going to move to second side. So the reason I like to do the tighter side first is that a lot of times there's a gap. We're more flexible on our looser side. And so I tend to do my looser side or my less tight side a little more gently than I do my tight side. So I'm trying to narrow the gap between the two sides. So When you're setting up for your second side, everything is the same. We're just switching. So take your left ankle over your right knee and let the knee just hang. Remember to use those gentler variations if you like them. So you can go down here. You can take the foot all the way down to the ankle. And no matter where the top foot is on the bottom leg, and no matter how the bottom leg is set up, you can still add a little bit of support under the outer left hip, outer left knee. So I like to go a little deeper in this shape. So on the first side, I had elevated my foot. I totally messed up my blanket here. So I want to elevate my foot on the second side too. Like so. If you have that sensation like the top foot's going to slide off, then roll to the side a little and tuck something under that outer left hip. I'm not feeling that on this side, so I think I'm fine just to hang out. And as a reminder, if you're feeling any sensation at the sides of the knee joint, then just add a little bit of flex. So a little bit of heel away, a little bit of toes towards your knee. I'm feeling no pull there, so I'm just going to hang out, and we're going to start our time. In every yin yoga pose, I spend the first couple of moments letting myself get heavy and really choosing to re-soften all the places in my body where I hold my tension. So I re-soften my shoulders. I re-soften my jaw, my forehead, my belly, and my hips. And I start to notice where I'm feeling the most sensation in this pose. And wherever I'm feeling the most sensation, and I do this in every yin pose, wherever I'm feeling the most sensation, when I breathe in, I imagine that I'm expanding that area. And when I breathe out, I imagine that I'm softening and lengthening that area. And if you find that helpful, play with that. Just watch the area of most intensity with your attention. Breathe into it and expand it. And breathe out, soften it. Attention is on what you're experiencing. Your attention is on your body and your breath. Try to pull yourself away from the busyness of your thoughts and focus instead on what's happening in this present moment. Notice your mind drifting, and just gently guide your attention back to your body and your breath. And so when you're ready, we're going to start to engage some muscles so that we can move out of this pose. So hug muscles to bone around your legs. Just slowly and mindfully start to extend the bottom leg longer, unless it's already long. And then very slowly unwind that top leg and then just stretch or move in whatever way you want to stretch or move. Maybe some windshield wipers. Maybe a big stretch or hugging your knees in. Whatever you like. I'm going to come up to a seat for our next pose, and I'd like you to join me, but know that this next pose you can do sitting up or lying down. So if you decide that sitting up is too tricky, too much tension, then you can do this next pose lying down as well. But for now, let's roll to our side and very gently press our way up into a seat. So for this next shape, if you know that your hips or the backs of your legs are really tight and that sitting up is a little bit of a tension exercise here for the front of your body, then definitely sit up on something. It's better to actually sit up on something a little bit firm that will elevate your hips. If you don't have a firm blanket, then grab a pillow or even 2 pillows if they're pretty fluffy. And we want to elevate the hips. So when I sit up on something, I like to make sure that the bony part of my bum is sitting on the thing that's elevating me up. I don't have it too far forward underneath me, so I have it back a little bit. You want to have some other pillows and stuff nearby. So for this next pose, we're going to be bringing our feet together and our knees apart. So in yin yoga, we call this one butterfly pose. And unlike Hatha yoga, where we tend to bring the feet in pretty close, in yin yoga, you want the feet more forwards so that you're more of a diamond shape with your legs. And what I want you to do is just notice, and without any judgment, so we don't care how high up the knees are or how low, it doesn't matter, but without any judgment, just notice what's happening in your knees. And so if you're hanging out into gravity, no matter where your knees are, and the knees feel happy, so there's no pulling, even if it doesn't hurt, there's no pulling at the sides of the knee joint. That's what we're looking for. If you're feeling any pulling at all, wherever your knees are in gravity, you want to add a little bit of support. So you can do that with a bit of pillow under each knee or thigh. If your knees are higher, then instead of trying to prop the side of the knee, try propping the back of the hip a little bit, so up higher. And then that'll still support your knee. So wherever you want to add some support, add some support. Now remember what I said, we can do this same shape lying down. So if you're feeling a ton of pull at the front of the belly or the hips, you're feeling like you're really straining to hold yourself up, then set this same shape up lying down. So lie back on your mat, have some support for your knees, and you can just open the knees from lying down. If you're doing this pose sitting up and you're feeling some stretch, great. Hang out here, relax your arms, let your head hang, and hang out in this pose in a more upright way. If you're not feeling a lot yet and you want to go deeper, then we're going to bring the body forward. Now, I get sometimes some smush here between belly and thighs. I like to pull the belly in between the thighs and then start to melt forward. Some people are quite flexible in this shape and they'll go quite far forward. Other people are going to be up really, really high and just their head's going to be forward. But the point here is that we're going to relax through the shoulders and the head, and then we're going to hold our version of this shape for time. So I really want you to notice what's happening in your body. Now, if you're forward, but you're not super far forward, you can grab yoga blocks or more pillows and create something that you can put your head on. Could be a pile of pillows that you're hugging. I happen to have a yoga block, so I'm going to use that. And just melt forward. It's perfectly fine to just let your head hang heavy. In this shape, what you want to begin to notice is what's happening in your hips and what's happening with gravity and what's happening with the props that you're resting into. And you want to be very, very still. But at the same time as being still, you want to notice how much sensation you're feeling, and then you want to customize that level of sensation. So if you're quite far forward and you start to notice, let's say your head is into a pillow or a block, you start to notice, man, that block is really digging into my head. It's because over time the body opens up and starts to stretch. And so you actually end up going a little bit deeper in the pose throughout the time that we hold it. So if you start to notice that, you can just notice it and let it be. Or you can choose to follow the sort of edge of your sensation and go a little bit deeper by lowering the prop under your head or lowering the props under your knees. With knee props or hip props, you can also take them a little bit wider apart to go deeper. So you choose your shape. You choose how deep you're going to be in your shape. And then you just hang out. you find yourself tensing around the intensity in the pose, notice what happens if you let go of that intensity, let go of that tensing around the pose. And if you let go and you're like, oh man, I let go when it got too intense, that might be your cue that you're a little too deep and you need to back out a little bit so that you can soften fully into the shape without activating any muscles, without tensing or tightening around the sensation. Remember, there's no judgment. We're all going to be doing this pose differently. Some of us will be laying on our backs with our knees out to the sides. Some of us will be sitting up with just our shoulders and our head hanging forward. Some of our knees will be really, really high, and some of our knees will be lower. Take one last deep breath here. And so to come out of this shape, if you're lying on your back, engage the muscles of your inner thighs and slowly bring your knees up and then extend your legs long and start to stretch. If you're sitting and leaning forward, then place your hands into your thighs or the floor, wherever they can comfortably reach. Press into your arms and slowly lift your upper body up or lift your head up very slowly. Set any props aside. Take your time, bringing yourself all the way up. Roll your shoulders maybe up, back, and down. And lastly, lean back if you're sitting up. I have a couch behind me, which is even better. And slowly extend one leg, oh my gosh, and then the other. And if you're lying down, slowly roll to one side when you're ready and come back up to a comfortable tall seat. Remember, it's totally fine to elevate the hips, and elevating the hips is easier for those of us that are tight along the outer hips or the backs of the legs. That's going to be an important cue because our next pose is also a seated pose. So with that in mind, let's move into our next shape. So our next shape is going to be a wide-legged fold. So similar to what we just did, except for without the feet together, the knees apart. Now we're going to take the legs wide. And in yoga, we call this one either straddle pose or dragonfly pose. And so unlike in Hatha, where we worry about alignment of the feet and all that stuff, I want you to start out generally with the knees up towards the ceiling. So if your feet are rolling in or rolling out, see if you can change that, not by forcing it, but rather by grabbing your thigh and rotating your leg. So if my feet or knees are turning in a little bit, then what I'm going to do is grab my thigh underneath and just pull and sort of rotate the thigh outward a little bit. Now for a lot of us, the opposite is true and we're actually turning out. If you're turning out, then we want to reach under the outer thigh and rotate top of the thigh in, outer thigh back. So top of the thigh in, outer thigh back. It can also be helpful to reach back and pull a little bit of each bum out from under you. Yeah. So to move into this shape and your version of it, you're probably going to want to build a bit of a tower in front of you of blankets, blocks, pillows, whatever you need, so that you have something to sink into without getting too deep here in the inner thighs. So I like to have pillows. I like bolsters, I like blocks, whatever. Create a whole tower, because as you can see, my pillows are quite fluffy. So I'm going to actually be pretty deep even with 2 pillows. So you may need quite a few pillows or those firm blankets. If you're very tight and coming forward at all is like a no-go for you today, then instead grab a pillow, hug it up near you, and just like squish it a little bit and let your head hang. And this might be exactly what you need to do today for your practice. So up high, just give yourself something to sort of hug or build a tower that you can rest your elbows on and stay up high. If your practice is more forward, then create your tower by stacking, folding, bunching your blankets, your pillows, whatever you need to do so that you have the right size platform or pile to come forward into. And so we're going to all take our version of this shape and we're going to start our hold time right now. We're going to sink in. I'm just checking to make sure that people can view, but I think we're okay. All right. So if you're not already, deep, slow breaths, sinking in to our shape. As with all the yin poses, when the head is hanging forward, it can feel really nice in the neck and shoulders to get a stretch. But if that's not feeling nice to you today, or you're tensing your neck to hold your head up, then try bracing your elbows into your pile, maybe interlacing fingers and resting your forehead, or placing your chin in your hands. Just try to tuck the chin in close to the chest a little bit just to keep the neck long. We don't want to shorten it by lifting the head way up. And just like we did in the previous poses, notice where you're feeling the most intensity in your thighs, in your hips, inner thighs or groin, or even your back. Notice that intensity and take a deep breath into it. The only place we don't want to feel a lot of intensity in forward folding poses is right in the center of the low back. So if you're feeling a gentle stretch, that's one thing, but we want the low back to be drawn in rather than curving out. So if you're feeling like you're really forcing yourself forward into this pose, if you've got sort of an action where you're being pulled back and then you try to come forward, you're actually better served by bringing your props in close, keeping the spine long and just resting the head. Trust your body, and remember that you know your body better than anybody else. Know where it feels safe to feel intensity of a stretch, and pull away from any sensations that feel unsafe. Other than that, try to avoid the urge to fidget. Try instead to find a shape that works for you in this moment and settle in. Notice your breath. And really especially notice your exhale and maybe lengthen it a little. Consciously soften any held tension in the body. And so to come out of this pose, it's just like the previous pose. We want to use our upper body for support and keep our head heavy as long as possible. So we're going to move nice and slow. Place your hands into either your prop pile in front of you, your pillows, your blankets, or down on the floor if that's an easier reach. If you're up higher, just place your hands on the tops of your thighs and slowly lengthen your arms to bring your upper body up. If you're already more up, then you're bringing your upper body back a little bit. So start to come up. And as you do, just move your props to the side. Perfect. Maybe just take a moment to roll the shoulders, and when you're ready, we're going to slowly drag one leg in, and then the next. Oh my goodness. And then I like to bounce the knees, or roll the ankles, or point and flex the feet, and I know you can't see the very tips of my toes, but it doesn't matter. We just want to move the legs a little bit. And I really like coming back, lifting up off of my blanket there a little bit, and just some windshield wipers with the legs. I know this is a really easy movement, so it's nice to come back to something that loosens up a little bit. If it feels nice, you could just sit in any comfortable position and just move your upper body around. Any way you want to get out any stiffness in the body. And you may just want to sit still for a minute, and that's totally fine. I like to move and stretch. And so when you've had enough time just to sort of loosen, we want to go into second side. Or not second side, next pose. So for this one, we're going to start from the same place. So we're going to take our legs out in that big V. And it's okay if your legs are more narrow or wider, it doesn't matter. So big V. And then I'm going to bring in my left foot towards the middle here. And I'm going to just bring my foot towards that thigh of this extended leg. So left foot in, thigh extended, leg extended on the right side. Yeah. Now, if your knee is up really high when you do this, same thing we just did before in our butterfly pose, you just tuck something under that knee, right? If your knee is really high, that's cool. You tuck more under, right? So it's fine. We're going to find some length. We're going to take this pose in two directions. We're going to take the pose forward for about 2 minutes. And then we're going to take it to the side for about 2 minutes. So I want you to find a pose or a version of this shape. Doesn't have to look exactly like mine. That feels like something you can hang out in. And have your other props handy so you can build a pile if you would like. So we're going to do this again, like I said, for about 2 minutes in each direction. So the first direction is forward. If you're pretty tight, then you can just hug something or rest your arms on a pillow in front of you and just lengthen the spine. Let your head hang. If you want to feel a little bit more intensity, then you can create your pile a little more forward. And if you don't have enough stuff, you're actually better off to do the pose higher and use the support in a different way than to just hang out in discomfort. Because if you're in too much intensity, your body will just tighten around that intensity and you won't get the benefit. So you choose how to make your pile. Don't be afraid to use whatever is handy. I'm going to add some blocks under my pillow for a little more height. And I'm going to roll it in half because it's kind of fluffy. So use whatever props help you to sink in. I like to let my head go, but remember, you can also just rest chin in hands or forehead in hands. And so when I move into this shape, I feel intensity in my body in the back of my right thigh. Some of you will feel this more in the outer left thigh, outer left hip. Some of you might feel it somewhere else entirely. I even get sometimes some stretch down into my calf here. So please remember, whether you're forward like I am, or you're really high up with just a pillow tucked under your arms so you can relax your shoulders. These are all the same pose. And remember our intention from the beginning of the practice that we would take our own version of every single pose and honor our own experience on the mat. Think about the ways in which doing your unique version of each shape honors yourself. Think about that sense of self-compassion and self-care. Last big breath here. And so just as before, we want to slowly press the way up. We're going to keep the legs as they are as we move out of this shape. But if you want to roll the shoulders a couple of times before we change direction, you could do that. So to change direction, I'm going to move my stuff so you can kind of see what I'm doing. To change direction, you want to lengthen up the body and maybe even lift the belly. And as you exhale, you're going to just turn so that your upper body and your chest and your shoulders all faces your extended leg. So relax that foot. See how I flexed it there? Just relax it. Take a nice big inhale. And as you exhale, maybe you just round your shoulders and let yourself hang. If you're more open or more flexible, you might start to go deeper. And then you might go, okay, that's about as much as gravity is going to hold me. And see, in this practice, sometimes you're totally fine to let the body just hang into gravity. Sometimes you want support. So you have to decide that for yourself. Either let the body hang in whatever height you're in this pose, or add support. So I've got yoga blocks I can put on each side of the leg, and I can put them at different heights. These are a great investment if you happen to have some around. They're awesome. But if you don't have blocks, it's no big deal. You just grab some pillows or some blankets or whatever, and I would stack them on top of my leg. Just be careful not to put them on your knee. You don't want to pressure the top of your knee or put weight down into the top of your knee. So more forward or in closer up higher. Probably hear my wife sneezing. It's allergy season, yo. All right, so we're going to settle into this side of this shape. We're going to hold it for about 2 minutes. So as you find your version, make sure we're not pressuring the knee. Hang out, let your head hang. So whether you're up high using some support, whether you're up high using no support, or whether you're low with no support or some support, it's all allowed. Find your version and breathe into it. Now this shape changes what we're feeling. So most of us are going to feel something in the back of this right leg. A lot of us are going to feel some stretch through the left side body or in the back, low back at the side. You don't want to feel stretch in the center of the low back, but the side of the low back is kind of nice. Maybe side ribs, maybe outer left hip. We may all feel this pose just a little bit differently. So as long as it's not pain, so nothing sharp or stabbing or burning or electrical, then you're totally fine to hang out in some intensity. But you get to decide what feels safe in your body. But let's settle into some deep breath. Notice any tension in your jaw or your forehead. Notice any tension in your shoulders or your hips or your legs. See if you can soften, hang out into gravity a little bit. Take one last big breath here. And press your hands into the floor or your legs or whatever's nearby and slowly press your way up. If you're already more up, slowly bring yourself back a little bit. So unwind back to the center of your mat or back to facing center. And we're going to lean back a little. I've got the couch here, which is great, so I've got my elbows on it, but you can bring your hands behind you and just slowly bring that wide leg in and slowly unbend and stretch that opposite leg out and shake it out. So nice. We're going to take all that stuff to the second side, so you want to have your props on the other side. So same thing, we're going to move into that sort of wide shape first. So whatever width feels good in your body. And then we're going to bring the right foot in, and I help it along. My knees are naturally lower to the ground. This is partly due to the orientation of the bones in my hips. Don't judge yourself. If your knees way high, it's totally cool. You just prop it up, okay? If you need to have your foot a little wider out to the side and then prop it up, that's totally fine too. It doesn't have to be touching. It doesn't have to look like my pose. I really want to remind you of that again and again because it's so important. But for now, we want to take this pose forward. So you want to relax long leg on the left side. You want to have this knee supported so you're feeling no tension at the sides of the knee, okay, or the front of the knee. You want to feel like any tension you feel here should be in the belly of the muscles of the body. So inner thigh, outer hip, that's all okay. Not right at the knee, okay? So add support where you need it. We're going to take this pose forward for 2 minutes and then to the side for 2 minutes. So set up your forward version of the pose, add your pile of blankets or stay up high, relax your shoulders, whatever version you choose, that's what we're doing. I had my blocks under for mine. Remember, you can bend your elbows, rest your chin in your hands, looking slightly down or tucking the chin in a little, or your forehead. Or you can let your head hang right into gravity. Come into your deep breath and just notice where you feel this pose. So on this side, I'm feeling this pose more in my inner left thigh. On the first side, I felt it more in the back of the leg. And so that's interesting information about my body. I can say to myself, okay, back of my right leg is a little tighter than the back of my left leg. So my inner thigh is more tight on this side. So it's just interesting to notice the differences in our body, the places we feel these poses. And when you're curious about your experience in each pose, you'll find that you also stay really present. Your mind gets a little quieter. You can go, that's interesting. That's an interesting place to feel the stretch. You can notice the way the pose feels different when you take a deep breath in, and the way it feels different when you take a deep breath out. Last deep breath here. And then press your hands into your prop pile or into the floor or your thighs. Start to press your upper body up or back or both. And then keeping the legs as they are, we want to maybe just move the upper body a little, maybe some shoulder rolls, whatever feels nice. And we're going to take this pose over the left leg now. So just like we did before, we want to lengthen the body. And don't be afraid to lift the belly and slide it over the top of the thigh when you move into this shape. But big inhale, lengthen up. Exhale, change so that your chest and shoulders faces your extended leg. That might change what's happening in the right knee, so feel free to add a prop if you didn't have it already. And then you're going to take this pose over to that side. So for me, I like often just to hang into gravity. You can stay up high and just relax the shoulders down. That may be all you need to do. For some of us, we're going to be lower. And you can hang into gravity, or you can add support under each arm, or a pillow across the shin, or a pillow across the thigh. Don't put weight directly on the knee, just because it might press it down into the floor too much. And we're going to settle into our second side of this shape. For those curious, this is half dragonfly or half straddle. So straddle, as you remember, was just with the legs wide. So this way we're only using half of the pose. And really it's kind of silly because we're feeling the pose pretty intensely, I'm sure. So notice where you're feeling the tension or the stress of the pose. Notice where you're feeling the most stretch. Try not to tighten or hug tension around the areas you feel intensity. We do that automatically. So soften, notice, breathe into any intensity. And so in this version of this shape, I tend to feel things in the back of my extended leg and along the opposite side waist or the side of the lower back through here. Sometimes I feel things in the outer right hip. But remember, we don't all have to feel this pose in the exact same way or in the same places. We just all want to be feeling safe and feeling some sensation or stretch. As long as you're feeling some sensation or stretch, you're doing it right. You just want to stay away from any pain. You want to stay away from numbness or tingling. Passive postures, passive poses. These lengthen the connective tissues of the body. They apply healthy stress to our joints, allowing everything to get a little more fluid and flexible. So one last deep breath here. And then hands down to thighs or the floor or whatever's handy and nearby, and press your upper body up. Take your time. Ooh, nice and slow. Sometimes there's a little blood pressure shift when you come up, so if you feel a little dizzy, it's fine. Just take a deep breath. If for any reason that feels unsafe in your body, then you always just change things, skip them, do what feels right for you. Now that we're done with second side, I want to lean back, get my legs out of this shape. So slowly extend each leg. Oof. Oh, my leg stuck to my mat. Little bit of movement now. So I like to roll my legs, bounce my knees, point and flex my feet, roll my ankles, maybe do some of those windshield wipers. So whatever feels nice for you. So let's see how we're doing for class time. So I know we started late. We've got about 6 minutes left. So I'm going to finish with a back bend, and then you can move from that right into a Shavasana whenever it feels ready. So I'm going to show you how I would like to set this one up, and then you're going to do it your way. But what we're going to want to do for this next part is we're going to want to elevate. We're going to be lying on our back. And we're going to want to elevate the middle back, so just below the shoulder blades, away from the floor a little bit, which will roll our shoulders back. So you want the backs of your shoulders or the tops of your shoulders to still be in contact with the mat. I'll show you what that would look like in my body. Yours might look a little different. For this, the best prop is a blanket. So grab a blanket. Or if you don't have a blanket that's firmish, a good bath towel often works. So I like to make sort of a skinny but firm roll. If you've got a fluffier blanket, then your roll might look bigger, but if it compresses down smaller, that's still fine. So I'm going to roll my blanket up to about there so that I've left just a little bit of flat stuff on the bottom. And I'm going to position it about where I think the flat part is going to be my shoulder blades. And this is going to go right underneath my shoulder blades. So for this shape, you can have your knees bent and your feet flat, or you can have your legs long. It's whatever's comfortable for you. You can also have feet together, knees apart. Some people love the way that feels. So we're going to hold this one for about 3 minutes, and then we're going to have 2 minutes of Shavasana right after that. Shavasana is a comfortable rest. So once we've done the pose, I'm going to cue you to roll off of this blanket roll, and then just come back flat to your back on your mat. You can change that shape up any way you want when we get there, but the most important thing is that you're comfortable when we get to Shavasana. For this, you may have to position yourself a little bit as you come down. You want to feel like that blanket roll is right into the bottom tips of your shoulder blades, so it's above the middle of your back. And so that when you come back, I love this one. So when you come back, this is right under here. It's not under your lower back, but it's also not right behind the shoulder blades. You might have to adjust it a little until you get just in the right spot. Now I like to take my arms like 2 L shapes out to either side. That might be too intense of a stretch for your shoulders and your chest. If it is, then you can take the arms wider. You can even bend the elbows and rest hands on the belly. But when you do that, try to notice that if the shoulders lift away from the floor, you want to melt them back again. So maybe your elbows are wider. Find your version of this shape. Settle into breath. I do this with my knees bent, feet flat, so I don't get too much pressure in the low back. You might love to extend your legs long. Ooh, maybe that feels good today. That feels good today. So I'm going to hang out here. Either way, if your low back is too pinched or pressured and you don't like the way that's feeling, then briefly bend your knees, lift your hips, tuck your tailbone under a little to lengthen, not flatten your low back. Come into deep breath. Start to melt your shoulder blades back, melt the top of your shoulders. The back of your head gets heavier into the floor. And just flow with the breath here. Every inhale, really expand the chest, the belly. Every exhale, melt the tops of the shoulders back. Last breath here. And slowly, if your legs are long, bend one knee and then the other. Roll all the way over to one side. Doesn't matter which side, take your time. Lift yourself up just enough that you can pull that blanket roll out from underneath you. For Shavasana, one trick is to just put that blanket roll now under the back of your neck. If it's too wide, then just make it a little smaller. Oh, that feels so good. So settle in. We're going to spend about 2 minutes. I need my timer. There we go. We're going to spend about 2 minutes just relaxing back, settling into breath, and just sort of integrating everything we've just done. And so hands can be wherever they're comfortable. I enjoy placing hands on belly. If your low back is pinchy, it might feel really nice to walk your feet wide. Roll the tops of your thighs and your knees towards each other so your legs hold each other up. That can be a nice release if your legs tend to feel like they're going to fall out. Or maybe your legs are long. Most important thing is just to be comfortable and to come back to deep breath. Notice if your mind is drifting, and very lovingly guide your attention back to your breath. And please take one last deep breath into your Shavasana. A long exhale out. When you're ready, just start to move the body, some fingers, toes, wrists, or ankles. Slowly make your way into any kind of stretch you like. Maybe a nice good morning style stretch. And taking your time, just roll to one side. Nice and slow. Use your arms, your elbows, your upper body to press your way nice and slowly into any comfortable tall seated position. And when you get there, no big rush, no big hurry, just a little bit of movement with the upper body. Maybe you want to roll, do some circles. Maybe you want to tuck the chin and then open the chest. Notice what's happening in the lower back. Really common for those of us that aren't used to lying on the floor to feel quite a bit of pressure in the low back during some of those poses. And we've also done quite a bit of forward folds, so some pressure in there is super normal. What you want to notice in any yoga practice is what you feel in the 1 to 2 days after you practice. Any places that feel particularly sore after 2 days, those are areas you might have overdone it just a little bit. Usually normal to be a little bit sore 1 to 2 days, okay? And that's only where we really stretch stuff. So throw the shoulders up to your ears, back and down. Lengthen up the spine. Bring your hands, palms together right at the top of your mat, thumbs against your heart. Big inhale. Exhale, bow your head. So we'll close this morning's practice with a deep gratitude for ourselves for making the time for self-care. Gratitude for this practice of yoga and for each other. Namaste. Thank you, everybody, for joining me. I know we got started a little late, had a little bit of tech issues. Hopefully this was a good experience for you all. Please send me any feedback that you have. I'm going live with this program more widespread as of August 1st, so I really appreciate any feedback. I did use a slightly different filming setup this time than I did from the last class. If you've attended today and the previous class, which was on Tuesday, let me know if it was any different for you. I would really love to know. So thank you so much again. If you have any questions about poses, anything you experienced that you want to hash out with me, totally cool. Send me an email, lisa@fatyogini.com, or you can private message me on Facebook at Fat Yogini, or talk to me in our yoga and body acceptance group, because sometimes you'll ask a question that somebody else maybe doesn't know to ask or just doesn't want to ask, and that can help other people. So whatever you want to do and however you want to do it, but do keep in touch. And I hope to see you again soon. Bye!